Welcome to the Wealth in Yourself podcast, a show dedicated to helping you master the complex subject of money by simplifying it through stories and actionable advice. I'm Josh St. Laurent, and this is Wealth in Yourself. Welcome to the Wealth in Yourself podcast, where we help people to design their ideal life and take control of their time and money. I'm your host, Josh St. Laurent. Today, we're joined by Karim Kerachni. Karim is an entrepreneur, world traveler, and real estate investor. He owns Steammates, a successful cleaning business with multiple Canadian branches. He's also in charge of franchise development in Massachusetts for a real estate company disrupting the industry. His mantra is work to live, don't live to work. Karim, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thank you, Josh. Very happy to be here. Thanks for the intro.
Yes, absolutely. So there's so many different directions we can go with this, right? Just based off the intro. I mean, I know you're coming to us today from Malaysia. Can you tell us a little bit about like your journey in the world traveling and kind of the exciting things that you've been doing?
100%. Yeah, I'd be happy to. To make a long story short, I grew up in France. I was born in Canada, but grew up in France and then moved to Canada in 2014, where I spent about 10 years. And that's where I started my first business in 2018. That's the cleaning company that you mentioned. I grew it to a point where I was not needed anymore in the day-to-day by design, because I believe that the business should not have a bottleneck, to be able to grow and flourish. And for myself, I see myself more as an entrepreneur than a business owner. So I wanted to, move from one project to another. So I moved to this project, which is Property Guys. I've been doing that for about 2 years now. It's a very well-known company in Canada. They've been very successful for 25 plus years, and they are expanding internationally, including in the US. And that's where I come in as in franchise development for the state of Massachusetts. But actually, I am helping with every state that have some interest. I've been able to remove myself from the day-to-day and from, working hands-on in the business. My goal was to, take this show on the road. And that's what I've been doing for now about 2 years. I've been traveling, not just going from one country to another, but I personally enjoy traveling, staying in a country for a certain amount of time, really getting to absorb, the culture, meeting the people, having some impact and bringing some value one way or another, but also as a way to visit the neighboring countries. So in the case of Malaysia, we've been here for almost a year, and we got to travel to, Thailand and Cambodia, Laos and Vietnam, etc., etc. We here, when I say we, me and my wife, and our 2 cats. That has been my journey over the past couple of years. I am embarking in a new project soon, which is going to take me to Ohio. I've never been there. I'm going to spend a few months there. So pretty excited about that. That's the next.
Yeah, so many exciting things to touch upon. Like I definitely want to talk about like the nomadic business owner type of lifestyle. We have a lot of people who reach out about that, right? Like that's sort of the dream for a lot of folks. And so maybe we can spend some time talking about the cleaning business. It sounds like 6 years start to exit, where you're, like you said, you're no longer the bottleneck. You're no longer needed in the business. What lessons did you learn in those 6 years of building the cleaning company up, maybe that other people could repeat, in their own businesses?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great question. And actually, for the record, it actually took me only about 2 years to remove myself from the operation. Then I was for about a year and a half, 2 years, I was working from home. And I was starting, this other business. We launched another branch. We started in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is on the East Coast in Canada. And in 2021, that's when we opened another branch in Ottawa, and I was involved with this. We tried also other things, other type of services. And then I started Property Guys. So after only 2 years, I actually had successfully removed myself from the process. And really my main advice is from day one to be very mindful of all your processes, because any business have some systems and processes. And by that, I mean the set of software that you're using and everything that you do as the business owner, even if it's only you or you and a couple of people. How are you guys doing things? What is making you successful? In the case of the cleaning company, the various types of cleaning that we were offering, move out cleaning, Airbnb turnover, those kind of things. What is literally the step-by-step process in those cleanings? Further than this, how do I do the marketing? How do we do the recruiting? or if need be the firing, how we do the invoicing, and all of this being mindful of it, trying to perfect and making more productive, more efficient, and then record it. And that's really where the key success factor, I would say, is to record early on and to then improve over time your processes. And the reason to do this, actually, there are multiple purposes. First off, if eventually you want to sell the business or expand and you open new branches of whatever business you have, you're going to need that operations manual. Really, your business is this set of systems and processes. Or if you want to franchise your model, that's also something critical that you need. But on top of that, that's really what allows you to delegate efficiently. We've had multiple managers, over the years. Actually, we had three. The first one being the best one who really helped me in that process of growing the business. And then once she was gone, she had to move on to another project. I was a little worried on finding a good replacement because she was fantastic. But it was actually not that hard because I hired someone who was good and he knew exactly what he had to do, what was his day-to-day, what was the operation, and so on and so forth. And not just the manager, the assistant manager, the admin people, the cleaning staff, all of them know exactly what they have to do, even if they just came on board, a few days or a few weeks prior. So for the delegating, it is critical to have your set of systems and processes recorded and perfected over time. And as I mentioned, if you want to expand or if you want to sell your business eventually, we are currently looking to sell the cleaning company. When I say we, because I sold half ownership a couple of years ago to a business partner, and now we're looking to sell the whole business. And that's something that we do highlight to investors. The fact that it is turnkey, we're not needed in the operation, that's huge value, but also it is duplicatable at larger scale.
Wow. So it really seems like the lesson is spend that first year and a half, getting everything dialed in, systems, processes. Maybe the first location took year and a half, but then really what happened next was you could open the second location and day one, be ready to go with all your systems in place.
Absolutely.
And you knew exactly how everything was going to work. That's really, really cool. I love that lesson. And I think that's a perfect segue into talking about franchising, right? Because a lot of people want to buy a business, but don't know where to begin. Whereas the franchise comes with the systems and processes. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how that transition was for you and how that came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is a great segue because I actually got to experience the building a business from scratch, building a brand, systems and processes, and obviously all the challenges and that come with it and the costly mistakes that come with it, which I do not regret one bit. It has been, great learning experience, but discovering the franchise world has been, a game changer in my mind because now I can see the value. Because what is a franchise? To pause here, what is a franchise? You're buying in an existing brand that it already has, good reputation, maybe a database of clients and a set of systems and processes already in place. So you really don't have to invent anything. You just follow the process. You're successful. It's pretty, straight up, and support system and resources that are shared among the franchisee. In the case of Property Guys, and I'll talk about Property Guys in a minute, but one thing that they offer to their franchisee is a resource center. So a call center that does the inbound and outbound calls, lead generation, marketing, the web development, SEO, and so on and so forth. So all those things that as a new business owner, you would have to figure out and find people to do and spend a lot of money, building your website, for example. When you buy in a franchise, people are like, oh, you have to invest some money to buy a franchise. Actually, it's saving you a ton of money from having the resources pulled together and from having not to make all those costly mistakes that you would make as a new business owner and building, it takes years to build a strong brand and reputation and reviews and so on and so forth. So that's really what, now drives me in finding franchisee for Property Guys is to pitch this idea of you actually have to, you get to skip 3 or 4 years of hard work by simply, investing, in our case, very affordable and to get started from a very high point from day one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I mean, the 3 to 4 years for some people is conservative, right? I mean, it's a lot of work up front starting the business, a lot of trial and error. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what is Property Guys? What do they do? And, if you're someone who's like, hey, I'm looking to buy into a franchise, what would that look like for Property Guys?
Absolutely. So propertyguys.com, it's a business that originated in Canada 25 years ago. So it's not new. It's basically an alternative solution to the traditional real estate model. As you may know, most people here may know, the real estate industry hasn't really changed in over 25 years, over 100 years, actually. And it is ripe for disruption. It is ripe for change. When people want to buy and sell real estate, they have to go through a real estate agent, which is a sort of big mafia to whom you have to pay large commission. Average house price has increased drastically, has more than doubled in 10 years, which is nuts. Commissions have more than doubled in 10 years, which is also nuts. And therefore, the inventory also has dropped recently. So all those issues, that's where Property Guys comes to bring an innovative and unique solution where they basically allow people to sell on their own or with support and expertise. But no matter what, whether they want to be hands-on or they want to be fully hands-off, it is for one-time flat fee, typically in the 5 or 6 grand range for all the services that they need. I'm not only talking about replacing the agent, but also it includes the service of a real photographer and a stager and a mortgage broker and a lawyer, etc. Drone shots and 3D modeling and so on and so forth. So all the exposure listing on the MLS, all of that is included in a package that is about 5 grand on average, depending on the market. So they get to save dozens of thousands of dollars, all that money that those homeowners have gained in equity over the years. Instead of dropping it down the drain in the commission, they actually get to keep it. They get to reinvest it in their next property as a down payment and so on and so forth. So that's what Property Guys has been doing. And you can imagine how successful they've been doing that. There is a real need, especially these days in the industry. And that's where I come in. It's in the franchise development side of things. So Property Guys has about there are over 100 franchise now from coast to coast. I'm in charge of finding those franchisees in Massachusetts. And those franchisees in Massachusetts, or franchisee, typically the most successful ones, already come from the real estate industry. Real estate agents, mortgage brokers, real estate investors, those are the best fit for this model. If we take the example of a real estate agent, it's actually pretty obvious. Not only it's an overcrowded industry. There has been, I think, over 600,000 new agents just in the past 10 years, which is ridiculous. It's one of the fastest growing jobs. And so that means the competition get more fierce, even though the inventory, is dropping because people have no real incentive in selling since they have no gain in selling really. For an agent to get to do something different, to stand out from the crowd, to have a different offering from everyone else, to be a business owner, not just a contractor, not just going from one commission to another, but actually building a business that actually generates a lot more income than, most agents actually make. And to be exclusive, so not have to compete with anyone in their territory. A franchisee owns an exclusive territory. So any leads, any client in their territory are theirs. So those are 3 of the main points that really make real estate agents, but not only, great candidates for this model.
Yeah, that is fascinating. So I'm curious about actually one of the last things you just said about them having an area, no competition, obviously within Property Guys anyway. What is the trade-off for the investor, right? Do they pay a flat fee to Property Guys? Do they give up a percentage of interest in the property? I'm kind of curious about that aspect of it. And I'm sure people listening are as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So first off, so in any franchise model, there is 2 or 3 components. There is the initial franchise fee. In the case of Property Guys right now in Massachusetts, to be completely transparent, because we want things to grow quite quickly, the franchise are around 40,000 or 35 to 40,000, depending on the territory, the exclusive territory. And that's a one-time fee to own your territory for as long as you want. So it's made very affordable. A lot of franchise people think, hundreds of thousands of dollars, not in our model. And then there is royalties. So in our case, again, it's 8%. So it's, only 8% on the revenue. 92% of the revenue that the franchisee generates is theirs. And in our case, there is a third fee, which is for all the services provided by the franchisor, which is all the marketing service, the lead generation, the website, the SEO, and so on and so forth. All of that is pulled into a number that actually makes the franchisee save a lot of money. It's about $1,800 currently for all the services. So they don't have to hire a graphic designer, web designer, marketing staff, assistant, salespeople, and so on and so forth. So they really can get started. Once they go through the training, they can get started right away, start making money right away. They don't need to get a store and office. So it's very low overhead. Now, how do the Property Guys franchisee operate? His main focus, so they don't actually have to be involved from A to Z with each listing because they actually work on volume. On average, about 100 listings a year. And if they're licensed, they also can work with buyers, typically a similar number of buyers. So it's a huge portfolio of clients. They obviously make less per client, about, 6 grand. Sometimes it goes up to 9 grand, depending on the package that the client chooses, but they work with a much larger volume and they can actually choose to be more hands-on or more hands-off, depending on who they are. Some are very business minded. They just want to increase the numbers. And so they might be over 150 listings a year or more than that, 200. And others want to be more hands-on and to provide some of those services themselves. You might have some skills in photography. You might be a licensed agent. You want to do the showings yourself. whatever it might be, you're going to keep a larger profit margin, a larger piece of the pie, maybe work with less client, but overall your net income will be pretty similar. And so working on this volume of clients also benefit every property guest professionals, which are actually local professionals with whom the franchisee partners. So take the example of the real estate lawyer, the mortgage broker, the photographer. Those are local professionals that are going to get the whole volume of clients going through them. So that's going to benefit them widely, and vice versa. They're going to benefit the franchisee. So it's basically a win-win in every direction. The clients end up saving a ton of money. It basically drives the economy locally. All those property guys, professionals, those exclusive partners will benefit widely. And the franchisee also usually make a very substantial return on their investment.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, I hear this a lot. A lot of people are underestimating what it takes to get into real estate investing. They get started and then it's like, wow, I didn't realize I needed the website. I didn't realize I needed to source the leads, right? I didn't realize I needed to build a whole team out. So I do love that this is doing that for them. I'm curious about for the real estate investors who are listening, and maybe they're in a very specific niche and they say, I'm looking at multifamilies, or I'm looking at mobile home parks or self-storage or whatever it may be. Is there a niche that Property Guys is really focused on and really specializes in helping with, or is it really fully encompassing? Or can you talk a little bit about that?
Fully encompassing, meaning we're basically a platform that helps people sell their property. And I say property because I don't want to mention home specifically. We're heavy on the residential, but actually the same model applies to commercial properties, land. And we also, as I said, help buyers and work in the rental space. So we have an offering also specific for landlords and tenants. It is fully encompassing, and it is going in the direction of a one-stop shop for everything real estate. That's really what Property Guys' vision is.
That's incredible. Really intriguing. I do want to kind of bring it back to you personally. So you have worked all over the world, right? So I'm curious, and I know a lot of listeners are as well. What have you learned? What can you teach us about setting yourself up for success when you're working remotely, right? Because there's a lot that goes into it. Do I have good Wi-Fi where I'm going to be? What time zone is this in? Are my meetings going to make sense, or am I going to be up at 2 a.m. taking a meeting? So what have you learned along the way to really put yourself in the best position as you travel around to work?
It's funny you mentioned that, because it's actually 4:30 a.m. right now. I mean, depending on what you do, there are ventures where you don't really need to be in a specific time zone. In my case, obviously, wherever I am, I have to be mindful of, being on Eastern Standard Time for Massachusetts. I still have my cleaning company, which is on Atlantic Canada time. And so you get used to it, but you have to be mindful of the time. You're right. The Wi-Fi situation is a big deal. Again, depending what type of travel. For me, as I said, I like to settle for at least a few months in each country. So it's not that big of an issue. You can get good Wi-Fi or, 5G connection, whatever it might be. The key for that, in my opinion, is to create a good routine. I'm all about routine and habit. Let me give an example. Being in Malaysia, it's 12 hours from Massachusetts. And so what I do, I work in the evening from basically 8 p.m. until midnight typically, which is the morning in Massachusetts, no problem. I'm usually off in your afternoon, which is my nighttime. I work for about 4 hours, at night. I do wake up early in general. I usually wake up at 4:30 or 5 a.m. Anyway, I work a couple hours in the morning and I have the rest of the day free. I have to do some admin, emails and whatnot. I go to a coffee shop with a nice view or on the beach, whatever it might be, to deal with my admin. But besides that, I have the whole day available. That's my definition of success. And that's very personal. I'm personally not looking to make millions and millions or take over an industry fully or whatnot. I love, what I'm doing, and I do expect this business to grow and my other businesses to grow. But my main focus, even if it were to not grow as fast as I would like, I'm satisfied if I have this flexibility of time and space, which is the definition of success for me personally. And I think it starts there, figuring out what is your vision for yourself before your business. What are you trying to accomplish? That's a question I often ask when I talk to potential franchisees. Are you seeing this as a side hustle? Are you seeing this as an income replacement? Or are you seeing this as an empire builder? It's fine either way, but you need to be really, really clear with yourself and with your business. What are you trying to accomplish there? And what is success in your world?
It's such a good point. Honestly, that's one of the things that jumped out to me about your bio and your profile was work to live, don't live to work. That's something we talk about a lot at Wealth and Yourself with clients. Same exact thing. How do we free up more time in your life? How do we spend more time doing the things we love to do, right? Sometimes it's about, stacking money, but to what end, right? So I'm glad that you brought that up. Another thing that I thought about when I was reading through your bio is you are always active, right? You start a business, you build it up, you sell half of it, you move on to the next. So I wanted to ask you, what are the other new exciting projects that you're working on? What's next for Kareem?
First, with property guys in Massachusetts, it is ramping up. Just before this, I had a couple of calls with potential franchisees who are going to cross the finish line very soon. So that's very exciting because when you're starting something, it's not something new, but it's coming to a new market. It's all about finding the first people, the early adopters. And now that we found those early adopters, things are really ramping up and that's very exciting. But as you mentioned, it's in my nature, I guess. I really have my eyes on another project that's going to take about 6 months of my life this year with Vivint Smart Home, which is the leading company in smart home system and solar energy. And so I'm going to be driving a team in business development, basically, bringing more client in the smart home and especially in the solar energy, which is really the future of energy, as everyone knows, I'm sure. And so I am currently, funny you mentioned, currently recruiting people all over North America, not necessarily in Ohio, people from anywhere in the US, anywhere in Canada, even Mexico. We can bring them on at the right time right now because we're going to be finishing with the recruiting soon, starting with the training. It's a very thorough training. I used to work for Vivint actually years ago, and it has been one of my best career builder because it built me as a professional, as a salesperson. And I would say very personally as well, that it taught me a lot on myself, how to improve myself, personal development, and how to build routine and habit. That's where I learned that, amongst other things, good communication and so on and so forth. So long story short, I want to now extend that opportunity to people, typically people within 20 to 30 years old that might be looking for the next opportunity. So don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have some interest in learning more about it. Again, it is a process to come on board, but if you have any kind of interest, definitely reach out.
Yes, definitely. I was going to say, go ahead and plug, like, where is the best place to reach out to? Is it email? Is it LinkedIn? Where should people be connecting with you? And we'll put it in the show notes to be sure.
I'm very active on LinkedIn for each of my ventures. So my name, Karim Kerachni, you can find me easily. I'm the only one with this name, which is pretty neat. If you want more info about property guides specifically, my info will be in description. You can just type propertyguide.com franchise or Massachusetts on Google and you'll see a lot of materials about what we do. Don't hesitate to reach out. Again, we're really looking for people who are mutually a good fit, which relieves a lot of pressure on my end and on your end. And regarding the Vivint opportunity, same thing. You can reach out on LinkedIn, or I can give my professional number, which is 857-308-1234. Shoot me a text. We'll schedule something and we'll go from there.
Perfect. So I want to bring it full circle and just ask you, what else should we know when it comes to investing in real estate or building a business, or maybe even a problem that Property Guys is solving that you see so many franchisees struggling with when they come to you to start, as a franchise owner?
So one thing interesting that kind of links my professional experience with the Property Guys model, I mentioned, good candidates being realtors. Another great set of candidates are people in the real estate industry, real estate investors, mortgage brokers, real estate lawyers. The reason I'm mentioning this is because having this double hat, it doesn't have to be a replacement. It can be a mortgage broker, for instance, and a franchisee, and actually cross-pollinate, refunnel clients from one side to the other and really maximize profit and potential on both ends. The reason I'm mentioning this is because two of the new franchisees that are coming on board soon are mortgage brokers with 20 plus years experience. They're getting 2 territories, 2 franchise, and another future franchisee is a real estate investor who actually wants to use the franchise to find, the best deal from one business to another and have this double hat. My point being, I think finding a business venture, whether it is something you start from scratch or a franchise that is compatible with what you're currently doing and trying to maximize your potential, is the smartest way, the wisest way to go.
Wow, that's really exciting. Thank you. So I'm going to transition a little bit to the last 3 questions that we try to ask everybody. They're a little more personal to you. And so the first question is, what does living a wealthy life look like for you?
For me, at this point in my life, it is my freedom of space and time. So not only being able to make my own schedule and being flexible with my schedule, which is the case for a lot of entrepreneurs, but also being flexible and being able to, live, in any places, discover the world while I'm traveling, when I'm earning an income, living in places where honestly the cost of living is ridiculously low. In the case of Malaysia, where I am, and Southeast Asia. I mean, this is a huge comfort and peace of mind and a huge, great experience that I'll be able to share with my children and grandchildren and put it in my autobiography. Someday.
Yes, no doubt about it. Those experiences will be with you forever. Next question is, if you could give one message to someone working to gain financial freedom who isn't there yet, what would it be?
First thing is to grow a network. So that's not something as really we talked about during this show, but being surrounded with not only like-minded people, people that are where you aim to be, and people that you can bring value to and they can bring value to you. It's very important. So even though I am not in Massachusetts or Canada, I still network heavily, remotely. Now we're blessed to be able to do that remotely. I have built an extensive network in Massachusetts over the past 2 years, and that has benefited me widely with my business. It's a huge advantage. And yeah, I think, having this support system and this set of go-to people in any industry is a great way to grow financially and in your business.
Yes, it's such an important point. I mean, myself, even as an entrepreneur, I've come to realize this lesson is everything, right? It's so, so important. It's all about who you know. So I'm glad that you went there. Third and potentially hardest question of the day. If you only had $1,000 and you were starting over, what would be the first thing you would do with that money?
That's a very good question. My mind goes straight to my cleaning business. The reason is I actually started with about $1,000. I started it genuinely from scratch and bootstrap. At that point, I didn't have a lot of money to invest, and I didn't see myself, raising money for, finding investors or whatnot. And actually, I came to realize not just cleaning, but a lot of service businesses, you actually can start with very little money. If you have a specific service that you want to provide, home services, I'm thinking, landscaping, I'm thinking painting, a whole bunch of home services, you can actually start from scratch, reinvest your earnings. You actually can start quite quickly if you're smart with the way you're doing things, and you can grow quickly. Like I did, I'm staying from my experience with the cleaning company. Within a year, we reached 150K in revenue and we doubled the revenue for the following 2 years. Started with $1,000. I think this is something that anyone can start anywhere. Cleaning, for instance, you can open a cleaning company anywhere, but the caveat is don't see yourself as a solopreneur, as I'm a cleaner or painter, whatever it might be, but see it as a business that you're going to grow and you're going to remove yourself from the process from day one. As we talked about at the beginning of this show, because as just you're going to reach a ceiling. And if you see it as a business that you're growing, you're removing yourself from the process, there's pretty much virtually no ceiling and no end to it.
Yes, I love that answer. That's spot on. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you for being here. This has been really fun. I've enjoyed the conversation. Any last parting words, anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to mention?
Thank you so much, first off, for having me. I genuinely enjoyed that conversation as well. Don't hesitate to reach out to me, whether you have any interest with any of the things that I mentioned, or you just want to connect, you want some advice on entrepreneurship, business ownership, just reach out. Let's have a chat and let's see how we can bring value to one another.
Awesome. This has been the Wealth in Yourself podcast, where we help people to design their ideal life and take control of their time and money. Our guest today was Karim Kerachni. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. The Wealth in Yourself podcast is hosted by me, Josh St. Laurent, and edited and produced by Ray Haycraft. To learn more about how to make your money work for you, visit us at www.wealthinyourself.com and connect with us on all social media at Wealth in Yourself. This podcast is educational in nature and is not meant to be investment advice. Please do not construe anything said to be advice, and the opinions of the guests may or may not represent the opinions of Wealth in Yourself. This podcast and the information presented are separate from my employment at Golden Gate University. Still, they are part of my mission to make no-cost financial knowledge more accessible. If you like the show, please take a moment to leave us a review. We read all of your feedback, and we want to make sure we cover the topics that matter most. If you have a specific subject you'd like us to explore or a guest you'd love to hear interviewed, don't hesitate to shoot us a direct message. And as always, thanks for listening.